Mandelson betrayed our country, our Parliament, and my party. Mr. Speaker, he lied repeatedly to my team.
So many things I didn't think that I'd be able to do. I'd become a shepherd, a tractor driver.
There is a hideous contrast currently haunting the British psyche, one that the mainstream media attempts to sanitize with hideous photos and polished press releases. But Jeremy Clarkson, the king farmer of Diddley Squat, has decided to tear up the script. While the country fixates on the sordid imagery of private islands, Clarkson is pointing his finger at the files, the unsealed Epstein documents that suggest the Prince of Darkness, Peter Mandelson, was allegedly trading market-sensitive government secrets while the rest of us were being told to tighten our belts. Why is the Starmer administration expressing full confidence in a man linked to a £500 billion leak, while simultaneously taxing the family farm into extinction? Today, we are exposing the sleaze on steroids that connect the shadow play of London to the survival of the British countryside.
To understand the experts who currently run the UK, you have to look at what the files don't show in the photos. The newly released Epstein correspondence reveals a staggering level of institutional rot. We are talking about allegations that Peter Mandelson, while serving as business secretary, gave a disgraced financier advance notice of a £500 billion EU bailout. In the newsroom, we call this a high-level breach of trust. While you are being audited to the penny, the elite were allegedly using the nation's financial security as a currency of friendship. Clarkson's challenge is visceral. How can a government claim moral high ground while its most senior architects are caught in a web of unethical closeness with a convicted predator?
While the Prince of Darkness operates in the shadows of the Epstein files, a different kind of expert is targeting the paddock. Under the guise of rewilding and green frameworks, the Starmer government is paying farmers £700 to stop farming, while the real-world value of that land is £3,000. Clarkson has exposed this as arithmetic of attrition. These experts, backed by billionaire land grabs from the likes of Bill Gates, want a future where Britain is 60% dependent on foreign imports. Clarkson has broken the silence, proving that sustainable agriculture is often just code for corporate consolidation. It is a war between those who understand the soil and those who only understand the spreadsheet. The contradiction is absolute. The government demands carbon neutrality at home, while importing beef from cleared rainforests in Brazil and chlorine-washed chicken from Asia. Clarkson's strike back has highlighted the suicide of policy, banning the very tools, fertilizers and pesticides that allow a farm to produce 8 tons of wheat, and forcing them back to an organic model that only produces 2. This isn't environmentalism, it is state-enforced dependency. The experts claim to be saving the planet, but Clarkson has revealed they are simply liquidating the British farmer to make room for a vassal state of international imports. The Epstein files and the death tax on farming are two sides of the same coin. A world where the elite protect their own secrets while liquidating your legacy. Jeremy Clarkson is still in the mud, still fighting the shadow state, and still refusing to let the Prince of Darkness decide the future of the British soil. He has confirmed what the public has long suspected, that the experts are only experts in their own survival. The curiosity of the viewer shouldn't be about the hideous photos, but about the files they tried to bury. The king farmer isn't backing down, and the truth, much like the mud of Diddley Squat, doesn't wash away easily. The game is up. £30 billion. That is the amount Britain is preparing to pay to give up sovereign territory. Today, Chargo's representatives have issued an urgent appeal to US President Donald Trump, asking him to block Prime Minister Keir Starmer's plan to transfer the Chagos Islands to Mauritius. A strategically critical British overseas territory, home to the joint US-UK base on Diego Garcia, is suddenly at the centre of a political and security storm. The question landing hardest on Britain is simple and brutal. Why is the UK paying £30 billion to hand over territory it still controls? And why must the President of the United States be asked to intervene? It was never meant to unfold like this. The deal began as a quiet diplomatic process, tucked away inside long-standing international legal disputes. Yet the moment the financial details surfaced, the reaction became immediate and explosive. A nation already strained by unrest, migration pressures, and doubts over national direction has now discovered a territorial decision of staggering scale made without public debate.
Chagos Islanders have made a last-ditch appeal to President Trump to block Sir Keir Starmer's £30 billion Chagos surrender, which will hand the islands, the British overseas territory, to Mauritius.
The turning point came when Chagos Islanders in exile stepped forward with a public plea. Their letter to President Trump describes the transfer as a direct threat to regional stability and warns that Diego Garcia could fall under indirect political influence from actors aligned with Mauritius. And what stunned observers most was their offer to go as far as naming an island after him if he intervened. This is a population that no longer believes Downing Street is listening. Their appeal bypasses the British government entirely and lands on the desk of a US president known for decisive unilateral action. Trump's current foreign policy posture only sharpens the drama. Since returning to office in 2025, he has taken an aggressively assertive stance on global security, from Middle Eastern sanctions to military operations in Latin America. For Chagos leaders, he represents the last person capable of stopping the transfer before it is too late. The symbolism, however, is devastating. British citizens displaced decades ago now feel they must turn to Washington, not Westminster, to defend their future.
When the figure attached to the deal leaked, the reaction was immediate disbelief. The sense that Britain is paying tens of billions not to strengthen sovereignty, but to give it away, cut straight into public frustration already building across the country. Police forces struggle with escalating demonstrations. Border control faces persistent pressure. Local authorities warn of basic services stretched thin. Against all of that, a £30 billion payment for a territorial handover feels to many like a government that has lost sense of national priorities. The affairs of Mauritius are less relevant to the public than the simple reality. The Chagosians themselves overwhelmingly want to remain under British rule, and yet the transfer moves ahead as if their voices were merely a footnote. It has deepened a suspicion that has been growing for months, that the government is moving according to international legal logic rather than the strategic needs of Britain.
Behind the political noise sits the cold strategic core of the crisis. Diego Garcia is not just another overseas holding, it is one of the most important military platforms in the Indo-Pacific. American long-range bombers rely on it. Western surveillance of key maritime routes runs through it. In a world shaped by rising Chinese and Russian assertiveness, the base is an anchor point of Western hard power. Transferring sovereignty to Mauritius introduces multiple risks. Mauritius participates in the Pelindaba Treaty, a nuclear-free zone agreement shaped partly by Russian influence. Any change in status could raise legal and operational questions for nuclear-capable aircraft or vessels. And while Mauritius is not an adversary, it is deeply interconnected with a region where China has expanded its diplomatic and economic reach. The slightest shift in alignment could complicate future US or UK military actions. What makes this moment even more precarious is the wider geopolitical climate. Western intelligence agencies have been warning for months that China is accelerating its presence across the Indian Ocean, funding port projects, securing mineral routes, and tightening its grip on strategic islands from Sri Lanka to East Africa. Diego Garcia is the one location in this vast region where Western control is absolute, and that certainty is exactly what Starmer's proposal threatens. If sovereignty becomes diluted or subject to external political pressure, even marginally, Beijing gains an opening it has sought for years. For defense planners in London and Washington, that possibility is not theoretical. It is a live, urgent concern shaping every internal briefing on the Chagos deal. Chagos representatives argue that ceding sovereignty now is not merely symbolic. It alters the balance of power in one of the world's most contested regions, and does so at a moment when Western alliances are already under strain.
Keir Starmer's government enters this crisis already navigating one of the most turbulent domestic environments in recent memory. Anti-immigration demonstrations, counter-protests and security concerns have become near-daily features across major cities. Civil rights groups condemn the new policing proposals as overreach. Border enforcement remains a point of public tension, and polls show rising support for nationalist parties, accusing Labour of weakening sovereignty. Into this atmosphere drops the revelation of a £30 billion territorial transfer. It is not simply controversial, it is politically combustible. Critics portray Starmer as a Prime Minister guided more by legal doctrine and international consensus than by British strategic interest. Supporters in government insist the deal is about righting historical wrongs, but that explanation finds little comfort among a public increasingly anxious about national control. For Reform UK, for backbench Conservatives and for rising right-wing groups, the Chagos deal becomes the perfect symbol of what they claim is a Labour government disconnected from the public mood. As the story spreads, demonstrators gather outside Parliament. Some carry Chagos flags, others hold signs demanding a halt to the handover. Many simply chant the same phrase repeated in news broadcasts and online comment sections throughout the day: "Keep Chagos British." The police presence grows, tension builds along the pavements. Officers who have already been stretched across weeks of protest activity now face yet another surge triggered by a single question that cuts across all political lines. Why is Britain paying so much to give away land? The anger is not directed only at the deal itself. It comes from a wider feeling that sovereignty is being traded away piece by piece in decisions made behind closed doors. For many protesters, Chagos is not just a set of islands thousands of miles away, it is the line in the sand. If President Trump intervenes, the entire process could be halted within days. If he does not, the handover could proceed, transforming not only Britain's geopolitical standing, but the domestic political landscape as well. The stakes are immense. A country already struggling to maintain control of its borders, its streets, and its sense of direction is now confronting something even deeper: the possibility that it no longer fully controls its own territory. And so the question hangs over Westminster tonight with an intensity that cannot be ignored. If Britain is willing to pay £30 billion to give up sovereign territory, what else might it be willing to let go next? For 2 centuries, British policing has been defined by its local roots, but tonight that history has been rewritten. The Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, has just announced the most significant shake-up of law and order since the police service was founded. A new, nationwide police force is being established to take control of the country's most serious and complex crimes. While the government calls this a bold step forward, many are asking if this is a genuine solution to the spike in violent crime or simply a desperate attempt to centralize power. As this news broke, another crisis erupted at Wormwood Scrubs prison, where protesters breached the perimeter, forcing a lockdown. The message is clear: Britain is reaching a tipping point on law and order. Today, we're looking at the master plan behind the new National Police Service and what it really means for your local streets. Let's look at the data. Currently, the UK operates with 43 separate police forces. The Home Office argues that this fragmented model allows serious criminals to slip through the cracks. The new national force will absorb the National Crime Agency, counter-terrorism units, and even roads policing. The logic: efficiency. By centralizing the helicopters, the drones, and the elite crime units, regional forces are, in theory, freed up to focus on the core business of shoplifting, burglary, and antisocial behavior. But critics, including those on our panel tonight, worry this is lipstick on a pig. They argue that without more boots on the ground, centralization is just window dressing.
Furthermore, the abolition of police and crime commissioners, the elected officials who were supposed to give you a say in how your area is policed, suggests a move away from policing by consent and toward a top-down command structure dictated by Whitehall.
Why now? The political atmosphere around crime is at a boiling point. Whether it's the hate marches on the streets of London or the shock breach at Wormwood Scrubs, the public feels unsafer than they have in decades. Jonathan Gullis notes that millions are being drained from local budgets to deal with national protests, while shopkeepers are left to fend for themselves. The new force is designed to tackle people smuggling and serious organised crime. But for the average taxpayer, the question remains, will this stop the theft on my high street? The government is being judged on crime and disorder. If this new centralised model fails to deliver serious criminals in cells, it will be seen as the ultimate failure of the Starmer administration.
A national force for a national crisis. The Home Office has put its cards on the table. They've abolished the commissioners, streamlined the command, and created a super force to take back control. To the viewers who stayed, you are seeing the total reorganisation of the British state in real time. Our promise to you is to track the results, not the press releases. We confirm that the old model of policing is dead. Whether the new one can survive the reality of Britain's streets is yet to be seen. Curiosity about two-tier results isn't going away. It's being codified into the system.